What's up, my good peoples? Welcome to the Be Transformed podcast, where we're talking about ideas that stimulate wholesome thinking into identity, purpose, vision, and action. I am James Anderson, and today we're listening to a message from our BT community group. This is a group that meets twice a month online, and all these messages can be found on teambetransformed.com/community group. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. So today, continuing on, we've been talking about creating momentum in new areas of life, taking actions beyond our comfort zone. We've been talking about this year is the year of breakthrough and success. But with that, which is a fact, the breakthrough and success, it doesn't mean that there aren't still some challenges and some obstacles to overcome. And so we just entered in, this is today, March 1st. And March 1st, I'm declaring, is the month of no excuses. When you're trying to do some new things, take some new actions, create some new results, achieve some new goals, you can find that sometimes these little excuses can rise up and mess with you a little bit. And so this month is the month of no excuses. I think excuses can have to do with some fear and some doubt. And I feel like there's this freedom in this idea of no excuses, where it's like there's no bad thing that's going to happen from any of us taking proactive action, right? Like you're absolved from bad outcomes. It's like taking action is good, and there's no bad outcome. There's nothing bad that's going to happen. It's like everything's going to be okay. It's like we're free from the excuses and we're free to take action. And so today we're just going to look a little bit at excuses and kind of what they are and how they play a role in whether or not we take action or not. They can play a role in the picture of vision. Excuses can build an alternative picture that is not very productive at all. And so today that is what we are looking at. So an excuse is an attempt to make sense of not taking action. It's an attempt to make sense of not taking action to accomplish something. Excuses seek to defend or justify one's lack of actions. It's an attempt to free oneself from an obligation or a duty. Excuses seek to justify why we're not, taking proactive actions. It's like, today I'm tired. Well, it's kind of rainy. It'd be better if we started once the ground dries out. Then the ground dries out and you're like, well, now the ground's a little bit too dusty. You know what I'm saying? It'd be better if it rained a little bit and then it'd be a little less dusty, right? It's like excuses can kind of, there are things that we use essentially to kind of stay in our comfort zone. There's like this internal alarm that can go off. And our comfort zone behavior, right? Our mental conditioning can rise up anytime we want to take an action that's beyond what we normally do. And when you want to create a new result, you're going to have to take some new actions. But the challenge can be is that our comfort zone behavior will pop up and it'll be like, whoa, man, you don't want to do that. That's risky, man. What if something negative happens, or what if somebody, responds negatively, or they don't like it, or whatever? Like, whoa, like don't risk it all. And you can find that this comfort zone behavior can rise up pretty strong. And so what happens when that goes off is all these excuses start to flow in. One of our BT values is extreme ownership. Extreme ownership really is just about taking responsibility for everything in our life. And so extreme ownership says the outcome is 100% on us, or the outcome is 100% on me. We own the full weight of responsibility for our life and its outcomes. We make no excuses. Whatever it is that we want to create, we put forth the effort to create it. We don't look for somebody else to do the work, we do the work. When there's a problem, we own the solution. When something goes wrong, we do not blame other people. We look at what we could have done differently to have brought about a different outcome. Because if it's on us, then it's up to us. And if it's up to us, it's on. Extreme ownership, right? We talked about how we're going to actually read an excerpt from the book, The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And in that book, he talks about this concept of responsibility. And he says, okay, well, hey, if you're driving a car down the road and somebody behind you runs into you, whose fault is it? It seems logical. It's like, hey, that person ran into me, therefore it's that person's fault. The problem is that doesn't give you any power in the situation. Essentially, it's like if you can come up with an idea of what you could have done differently to brought about a different outcome, then it's on you. There's something that you could have done. And when you realize that there's something that you can do to influence the outcome of any situation, it gives you the power, right? So the question is like, okay, somebody ran into the back of me. Well, like, what could you have done to have brought about a different outcome, right? Could you have left wherever you left from a minute or two later or a minute or two earlier? Could you have been going a little faster or a little slower? Could you have been paying attention more to your mirrors and looking behind you? Could you have taken a different route? It's like when you start to ask these questions, you just start to see all the different things you could have done that would have put you in a different place at that specific time. It's like that's what true responsibility is. It's like it gives you the ability to evaluate the situation and consider what else you could have done. And you could employ that next time so that you try not to end up in that situation. Well, but if we get rear-ended and then we just blame that other person, right? Hey, that's not my fault. I was just minding my own business and you ran into the back of me, right? Why aren't you paying attention? That's kind of like we're absolving ourselves from the responsibility of the situation, right? If we didn't see that person, that's 100% on us, because that means that we were not fully aware of what we were doing. We weren't constantly paying attention to our entire surroundings. Well, the same thing is true when we make excuses, right? It's like we're trying to justify why we didn't do something. And those can really prevent you from making forward progress. It's like we don't want to get lost in the excuses, right? Because this is what happened to Israel, is that Israel, finally got to the Jordan, but because they got so hyped up on the fact that the people were big that they lost sight of the vision. And excuses can do that, man. They can cause you to lose sight of the very thing that God is calling you into. And so we want to become aware of those. So I'm going to read this as a couple pages out of the book, The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. I've listened to this many times. Let's get into it. It says, an excuse is a justification for doing or not doing something. He says, I think the dictionary implies that it's a reason. However, in reality, an excuse usually turns out to be something other than the real reason that motivates your action or lack thereof. For example, let's say that your excuse for being late to work is due to traffic. Well, that's not truly the reason that you didn't make it to work on time. The reason you were late is because you left your home without enough time to allow for traffic. Excuses are never the reason for why we did or didn't do something. They're just a revision of the facts that you make up in order to help yourself feel better about what happened or didn't happen. Making excuses won't change your situation. Only getting the real reason behind it can do this. Excuses are for people who refuse to take responsibility for their life and how it turns out. The first thing to know about excuses is that they never improve the situation. I would say that is very accurate, right? You show up late and you say, well, it was traffic. It's like, it just like that. It's an immature response. It's like it doesn't help the cause. The second thing to know about excuses is which ones you use on a regular basis. So then he's going to list off a bunch of excuses. He said, do any of the following excuses sound familiar? I don't have the money. I have kids. I don't have kids. I'm married. I'm not married. I have to find balance in my life. I'm overworked. I'm underworked. Too many people work here. We don't have enough people. My manager sucks, doesn't help me, won't leave me alone, is negative, is too jacked up. I don't like reading. I don't have time to study. I don't have time for anything. Our prices are too high. Our prices are too low. The customer won't call me back. The customer canceled the appointment. People don't tell me the truth. They don't have the money. The economy is bad. The banks aren't lending. My owner is cheap. We don't have or can't find the right people. No one is motivated. People have bad attitudes. No one told me. It was someone else's fault. They keep changing their minds. I'm tired. I need a vacation. The people I work with are losers. I'm depressed. I'm sick. My mom is sick. Traffic is terrible. The competition is giving its products away. I have such bad luck. So he says, how many of these have you used? He's like, go back and circle every statement that you've ever heard come out of your own mouth. Now ask yourself, will any of these excuses ever improve your condition? It's like, I doubt it. So why then do so many people make them so often? Does it even matter? An excuse is just an alteration of reality. Nothing about it will move you to a better situation. The fact that the customer doesn't have the money will not help you close the deal. The fact that you only have bad luck is not going to improve the conditions of your life or change your luck. In fact, if you keep telling yourself that you don't have good luck long enough, you'll start to expect that reality, thereby ensuring that things will continue to be bad. You have to start understanding the differences between making excuses and providing actual sound reasons for events. This book focuses on the many differences between successful and the unsuccessful. And a very distinct dissimilarity is that successful people simply don't make excuses. They are actually quite unreasonable when it comes to providing reasons, at least for failure. I'll never ask myself why I was unable to bring my product to the market, raise enough money, or make enough sales, because as far as I'm concerned, no answer will do. There are no justifications that will change these facts or situations, and any reasons I might provide are only opportunities yet to be handled. Any rationale you give yourself just gives someone else the chance to find a solution. Remember what I've said time and again throughout this book. Nothing happens to you, it happens because of you. Excuses are just another component of this, and a major differentiator between whether you will succeed or not. If you make success an option, then it won't be an option for you. No excuse exists that can or will make you successful. Engaging in self-pity and excuse-making are signs that someone has an extremely minimal degree of responsibility. He didn't buy from me because the bank wouldn't make the loan. This is an example he's giving. Right? So let's say, somebody comes to a car dealership, they want to buy a car, salesman's walking him through all the details, but at the end of the day, the person who wants to buy couldn't get a loan. And so the salesman is saying, hey, the reason I couldn't make that sale is because that guy couldn't get a loan. But Grant says, he says, no, that guy didn't buy from you because you, as a salesman, were unable to secure proper financing for a potential customer, right? Right. What he's saying is he's talking about taking that extreme ownership, taking that full responsibility. You know, the salesman could say, hey, it's not my responsibility. Like, I'm not the finance guy. Like, it's not my responsibility to secure this guy a loan. But in essence, he's saying if it's your job to close the deal, and part of the process of closing the deal is to make sure that guy has access to financing, that he's like, how is that not part of your job? But it's a higher way of thinking. The first statement assumes no responsibility for the event, while the other does and identifies a solution. Once you adopt a more advanced sense of responsibility and refuse to make any more excuses, then you can go out and search for a solution. And as an added bonus, you will avoid such situations in the future. The quality of being rare is what makes something valuable. So anything that is plentiful has very little worth. Excuses are one of those items that people seem to have an almost endless supply of. Because it's so plentiful, it doesn't hold much value. Because they do not forward your desire to create more success for yourself. They are worthless. They are worthless uses of your energy. If you're going to approach success, as you've been taught throughout this book, not as an option, but as your duty, obligation, and responsibility, then you must commit to never using excuses for anything. You cannot allow yourself, your team, your family, or anyone in your organization to use another excuse as a reason why something didn't come to fruition. As the old saying goes, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. Excuses, right? They don't play a very beneficial role in moving us forward. So, Jocko Willink, who was the guy who coined extreme ownership, he's got another saying, and it's no factor. And a factor is a circumstance, fact, or influence that contributes to a decision, result, or an outcome. So essentially, like in this phrase, no factor. No factor is any kind of idea or excuse that would influence not taking action. Right? So Grant lists off a ton of these factors, right? Like, don't have the right people. Oh, I'm not married. I got kids. I don't have enough money. The customer's not buying. The economy's bad, right? These are all factors. These are all ideas that seek to influence whether or not we're going to take action or not. You know, we have a list of factors, right? I'm tired. I can't focus. I'm not feeling it. I don't have the right gear. I don't have all the pieces. The creativity isn't flowing. The environment isn't conducive. It's not fun. It's hard. It's taking a long time. I'm cranky. And sometimes, you know, there's a whole, you know, infinite list of things that can come to mind of why we wouldn't want to show up prepared, why we wouldn't want to do what we said we would do, why we wouldn't want to actually take action to accomplish a goal. You know, there's so many of these factors that play a role in influencing our decisions. And sometimes these factors, man, it's like they can seem like legitimate reasons. It's pretty sneaky. So here's a picture of a scale. Right? So we've got our balance point in the middle. And if you go too heavy on one side, you know, it's going to tip the scale. So let's say on one side of this scale, we got a goal, right? We got some vision. We got a picture of something that we want to create. Well, on the other side of the scale, we have excuses, right? So this is the place where all those different factors, right? I'm tired. The ground's too wet. The ground's too dusty. These are all the where we can put all of our excuses. So let's just say, right, we have a goal. And let's just say our goal is to reach our minimum daily sales target every day this week. So I think we all know our minimum daily sales target is a calculation that we make when we're looking at our business expenses and our living expenses. And so we do the calculations to figure out what is the minimum amount of money I need to make a day, every working day, to be able to make sure at the end of the month I have made enough money. So we take our minimum sales target for our business expenses and our living expenses, we combine those, and that's our minimum daily sales target. So we have to make that to be able to, sustain our business and our life. And so we have a monthly goal, and we break that down into a weekly goal and a daily goal, right? And essentially it's like, okay, if I reach that goal daily, then I'm going to reach my weekly goal. And if I reach my weekly goal every week this month, I'm going to reach my monthly goal. And so, we know that sometimes in a week you could have multiple days that are above your minimum target and then a couple days that are below, but then over the week it kind of averages itself out. But let's just say we've got a goal where we don't want to go home until we reach that minimum target for the day. And we want to try to do that each day this week. All right, this is a beautiful goal. But let's just say, you get out, go to work, it's Monday, and there are no customers to be seen. Nobody's coming up to you. There's not a lot of people around, right? And so this is where we had this goal. We started to picture the benefits of it. We started to picture what we could do to create it. But now we're starting to get after it. We're hoping to accomplish it, but we're running into some challenges, right? We're like, well, where are all the people? All right, well, so maybe you see a group of people just a little bit down the way, and you have this idea, right? Because you got this target, and this goal is causing like creative thoughts of like, okay, well, if you're focusing on, I want to achieve this, so now you see a group of people down the way, you're like, hey, I could go talk to those people right now. And what can happen is that comfort zone behavior jumps up, right? It's like, whoa. Yes, you could talk to those people, but what if they don't like you talking to them? What if they say no? What if by the fact that you go talk to them, that now they're never going to be a customer? And this is all just stuff going on in our mind, right? We're like, whoa, man, there's, all this fear and this doubt start to rise up. That's that comfort zone behavior. And it's like, dude, that's too risky, man. Why would you go out there and risk that? Don't even worry about it. And so we start to build this picture in our mind of the proactive action that we could take. We start to picture it not working out. And the more and more we kind of marinate in these ideas, the more and more we add factors, right? We're like, well, listen, man, this is a nice goal, but dude, there's not even enough customers today, like the market really can't sustain that. So, maybe next week, listen, next week we'll give it a shot. Maybe it'll just work out better. And the more we're marinating on this picture of things not working out, it starts to tip that scale on the excuses side. And what's interesting is that you start to build a picture of the future being unsuccessful. And when these actions that you're thinking about taking that are beyond your comfort zone, when you start to picture them not working out, there is zero motivation to try to take action. And it's a problem. Because fear and doubt and all these excuses, all these different factors that we could throw into this bucket, they will seek to talk you out of the very thing that God's calling you into. but the people are huge, right? And they start to picture, it's like we were grasshoppers in our own sights, man. It's like, it's not even possible. Like, why did we even come out here? And this goal that was once over here, that is a beautiful goal, that is a goal of success and growth and development. This goal just like seems, it disappears because of this picture of the future. You can get so sold on this negative picture of the future that it's like you forget all about this goal. It's not even possible. Like, why did I even think of it? Like, it's too, and the more you marinate on this negative picture of the future, the more it causes you to retreat. It's like, it's starting to create that terror barrier, and it's harder and harder to get out of. The challenge is like when we're marinating in excuses, when you think about like the cause and the effect, the cause is the person who initiates action, who by the use of their will makes things happen, right? I had an idea and therefore I took action and I created this thing. And this thing that I created, that's the effect. The cause was the fact that I had an idea and then I put that idea into motion, right? I started to take action. Well, then I created the effect. But like when we're marinating on fears and doubts and we're marinating on excuses, that's a nice idea. Maybe next week, it's too hot. Once it cools down a little bit, it's just the time isn't right. The weather's not right. The earth is spinning too fast. Next time. We start to become the effect, and the fears and the doubts are the causes, right? So that means that the fears and the doubts are in control. And now we are the byproduct of those. And we're no longer in control. Grant Cardone said at one time, he said, everybody wants to be the cause, but most people are just the effect. Because it takes push to be the cause. It's beautiful to have goals. It's necessary to have goals. We say living on purpose means there's something that we have that we're working towards achieving, and it's that goal that is pulling us forward and requiring us to grow. It's requiring us to employ self-discipline, to have restrictions on our life so that we can actually create the thing that we're thinking about. It's the thing that's pulling us forward. But when we got all this list of fears and doubts and excuses, it becomes very challenging to work towards those goals. And it can prevent us from moving into the thing that God is calling us into. And it can kind of cause you to forget, man. You can get so stuck in these fears and doubts that it's like you end up in like a valley, right? Like where you had the goal, you were kind of it's like if you imagine you're up on a high place looking out and you can see the possibilities and the potential. But once you start walking, you get down to that valley, dude, you can't see anymore. And those fears and the doubts can kind of make your vision feel like you're in that valley and it's hard to see out of it. And so it's in times like these that it's like you got to remember what you're doing. You got to remember why you were moving in a certain direction, right? You want to remember, the verses, the words that God's spoken over you and your purpose and your mission. You got to remember these things, right? In 2 Timothy 1, 6 and 7, Paul's writing to Timothy and he says, therefore I remind you to stir up the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Like this sounds like old Timmy boy is having this problem, right? Where it's like he was sent out for a purpose and through some fear, right? He says he hasn't given us a spirit of fear. That's like the only reason why he would say that is because Timmy boy's in a little bit of a valley and he's having a hard time remembering why he was there and who he is and what he was supposed to get after, right? So he says you got to stir up that gift. You make a cup of tea, put some sugar in there, you stir it up. Well, when you stir up that sugar, it gets suspended throughout the liquid. But if you let that tea sit for a while, all that sugar that hasn't dissolved will come and sink back to the bottom. And it's like you got to take some intentional effort to stir that bad boy back up. We have to remember where we're going and what we're doing. Because what we got to do is we got to recognize when our minds are building pictures of failure and we're getting emotionally connected to that, that is going to prevent us from taking action. In the book, As a Man Thinketh, he said the power to do comes from the knowledge that we can do. When you're standing on the high place looking out and you're starting to see the possibilities and potentials of what you could do and what you could create and the things you could produce, you're picturing those things succeeding. And that's where it's like, okay, yes, I can see it. And yes, I can see a pathway. And yes, I believe it's possible. That's what motivates to take the action. But when the picture turns from I can do to that's probably not going to work out. I mean, whatever I try is probably going to be dumb. There's too many people in the market. How could I think I could ever make this work? When you start to marinate on those different ideas, it's going to eliminate all that motivation and cause you to want to run backwards. In Deuteronomy 6, Deuteronomy is Moses' farewell speech. So the book before this was Numbers. Aaron dies, and then Moses is given the farewell speech, and then he's going to pass the torch to Joshua. And so Deuteronomy is this whole passage of Moses just being like, for the love, remember God. He's like, you're going to forget, but do everything you can to remember. And that's like the whole book of Deuteronomy. So in Deuteronomy 6, 1-9, it says, now this is the commandment, and these are the statutes and judgments which the Lord your God has commanded to teach you, that you may observe them in the land which you are crossing over to possess, that you may fear the Lord your God, to keep his statutes and his commandments, which I command you and your sons and your grandsons, all the days of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. Therefore hear, O Israel, and be careful to observe it, that it may be well with you, and that you may multiply greatly as the Lord God of your fathers has promised you, a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand and wear them on your forehead. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. Right? He's talking about to remember means, man, you better put this stuff everywhere, because otherwise you're going to forget it. Right? He's like, you got to put it on the doorpost. You got to put it on your gate. Every time you walk into your house, it's like you got to look at it. Every time you sit down, you're talking about it. He's like, you got to keep these things in the forefront of your mind. And this is true. And the reason is because it's easy to forget, but man, it's important to remember. And when we got excuses and doubts and fears, we had this time where God's calling us into something beautiful, and yet you can lose sight of it. And we can come up with all these reasons that seem legitimate. They seem real. They seem like, well, yeah, that totally makes sense. Like, yeah, there's too many people out there. Of course it's not going to work. Like, what was I thinking? And it seems legitimate. And so it seems like a reasonable decision to not take new action, to just stay the same and stay where you are with your current situation, current results. But it's in time like these that we got to remember where we're going. We got to remember what we're doing. You know, I got all these papers up on my wall, you know, above my computer here, and I don't think I'm exaggerating. Every day I look at these things, and when I got those worries and I got those fears and I got those doubts and I got those excuses, I'll randomly stare at the wall and I'm like, man, all these things speak of something very different. They speak of a very different reality. They speak of discipline, commitment, the will, perseverance, expectation, being relentless, the cause and effect, right? It takes push to be the cause, because everybody finds opportunities to use excuses of why we shouldn't act. But it's the people who overlook those that succeed, right? We talked about Edison and the light bulb. It's like it's not the people who try and then quit that succeed. It's the people who persevere, right? When there's opportunities to quit, they don't take those opportunities. Those are the people who succeed. Bold risk. Bold risk, not hesitating to charge into the unknown in order to achieve a goal or advance into new territory, right? You're either going to step forward into growth or step back into safety, and there's no compensation for playing it safe. The word audacious means showing a willingness to take surprisingly bold risk. So this month is No Excuses March. Take your excuses off the table. If you find, man, that you're building a picture of the future on this side of the scale, on the excuses side of the scale, you find your reason for not taking action. It's because the picture of the future has been made up of the different components, the different factors of excuses, right? It's not the right time, and people don't have enough money. I mean, I don't got a good enough idea, I don't, whatever. We talked about some times ago about the guys who were mining for gold. They laid a claim, and they found some gold, and they went back home, and they sold their friends and their family and said, hey, loan us some money. We're going to buy this equipment and we're going to freaking get rich. So they sold their friends and their families. They got some money. They went back, bought some equipment, and bam, they were finding gold. And then the gold dried up, and they're digging and digging and digging and digging and digging and digging, and there's no gold. There's no gold. And so finally they're like, we're out of money. We owe these people money. Like, we need to go do something else where we can pay everybody back. They sold the equipment to one guy. That guy went to the claim, and he hired a surveyor, a mining surveyor, to come out and see what was going on. And it didn't take the surveyor long at all to identify what was going on. And the surveyor is like, oh, the original guys just didn't understand what was happening on a fault line. If you dig 3 feet in this direction, thereabouts, you'll pick up back with the vein of gold. That guy dug 3 feet in that direction and picked up back with that vein of gold. Sometimes knowledge is the problem. But like when we're making conclusions based upon excuses, it prevents us from wanting to take any more action. It's like, I've done everything I can think about. It's like, all right, well, is there somebody who might have some insight into that industry that is in fact winning, that could help you in that direction? 3 feet from gold. They had it, lost it. Everything they wanted was right where they were. They just They weren't quite marinating on the right ideas. And that's what I think this No Excuses March is all about. It's about recognizing where we've built pictures of failure and that have then created discouragement and have only increased the fear and the doubt. We want to stop building with those building blocks. We need to shut our mind off to the ideas like this, and we need to build a picture of the future that's based upon the achievement of our goal. Right? We want to think in terms of I can do it, right? I'm a conqueror. I'm not the conquered, right? I have what it takes. You need to picture it working out. You need to picture talking to people and it being a positive outcome, right? It's like you need to picture taking actions and these actions actually succeeding. We have to build a picture that's actually desirable. This is the only way that we're going to move towards creating it. It's funny that it's like so much of life is the byproduct of the quality of the ideas that we're marinating on. It has so much to do with what we think we can do or what we think we can't do. It's like, well, listen, man, I've already put some effort in. Honestly, it just doesn't matter. It's like, but bro, I'm tired. It's like, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much effort you put in if you haven't put enough effort in to make it work. And so it's like, that's what the book we read out of, the 10X rule, it's that 10X is 10 times. It's talking about the correct estimation of the amount of effort it's going to take to actually create what you want to create. He's like, whatever you think it's going to be, times it by 10. However much you think it's going to cost, times it by 10. However long you think it's going to take, he's like, you better times that bad boy by 10. Right? Because whatever you think it's going to be more. The gold was there for those guys to find. They just needed a little knowledge, and they could have found it. It's like, we don't want to build a picture of the future that's contrary to the thing that God has spoken about. We need to remember the things that God has spoken to us, through us, over us. We got to remind ourselves who we are, where we're going, what we're doing. And we got to build this picture of the future that's actually worth achieving. Guys, thanks so much for kicking it with us. Until next time, peace!